Trump just admitted he's using your tax dollars to starve programs you depend on, and he's bragging about it. This is not a drill. This is Project 2025 in action, and it's worse than we feared. Hey everyone, welcome back to Politics Tribune. If you're just joining us, hit that subscribe button because what I'm about to tell you is something every American needs to hear right now. We are now in week 3 of a government shutdown that didn't have to happen. Smithsonian museums are closed. National parks are shuttered. Federal workers are going without paychecks. And while millions of Americans suffer, President Trump is openly celebrating the chaos he's creating. Let me be crystal clear about what's happening here. This is not a typical political standoff. This is a deliberate, calculated assault on the federal government orchestrated by the same people who wrote Project 2025, the controversial conservative blueprint that Trump swore during his campaign he knew nothing about. Remember that? He distanced himself from it completely. But now, with his second term barely 9 months old, he's not just implementing it, he's putting its architect in charge of tearing down our government. On September 30th, 2025, at 1 minute past midnight, the federal government shut down after Congress failed to pass a funding bill. The House had already passed a clean continuing resolution back in September that would have funded the government through November 21st. It was a straightforward measure: keep things running at current levels while both parties negotiate a longer-term deal. But here's where it gets interesting. The shutdown isn't about some complex policy disagreement. According to multiple reports, Republicans and Democrats are deadlocked over enhanced Obamacare subsidies. The sticking point is health care access for millions of Americans. Democrats want to protect the enhanced subsidies that have helped millions afford health insurance. Republicans want them gone. Now, if you're thinking, well, both sides are to blame, let me stop you right there. According to a CBS News YouGov poll conducted in early October, 39% of Americans blame President Trump and Republicans in Congress most for this shutdown. Only 30% blame congressional Democrats, with 31% blaming both sides equally. The American people see through this. Here's where this story takes a truly alarming turn. President Trump has tasked Russell Vought, the director of the Office of Management and Budget and a key architect of Project 2025, with identifying federal jobs to eliminate during the shutdown. Let me tell you who Russell Vought is, because this matters. Vought literally helped write Project 2025, the 900-page conservative policy blueprint that proposed dramatically reshaping the federal government. During Trump's first term, Vought served as OMB director and was known for his aggressive approach to budget cuts and his desire to expand presidential power. But what's truly chilling is what Vought said back in 2023, before Trump's second term even began. In a quote that should horrify every American who believes in functional government, Vought said, "We want the bureaucrats to be traumatically affected. When they wake up in the morning, we want them to not want to go to work because they are increasingly viewed as the villains." Read that again. A man now in charge of the federal budget wants federal employees to be traumatically affected. This isn't about efficiency or reducing waste. This is about inflicting psychological harm on public servants, people who inspect our food, manage our air traffic, conduct scientific research, and provide essential services to Americans. So what does this cruelty look like in practice? Let me walk you through what's happened in just the last 2 weeks. According to court filings, the Trump administration has issued reduction-in-force notices to approximately 4,200 federal employees so far. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are people with families, mortgages, and responsibilities. And it gets worse. Multiple sources have confirmed that employees from major agencies, including the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, have been terminated during the shutdown. Think about that. In the middle of a government funding crisis, we're firing CDC employees, the people who track disease outbreaks, conduct public health research, and help protect Americans from health threats. Reports indicate that mental health and substance abuse program staff have also been let go. At a time when America is facing a mental health crisis and an ongoing opioid epidemic, we're eliminating the very people tasked with addressing these problems. The Smithsonian Museums and the National Zoo closed on October 11th, day 12 of the shutdown. These aren't just tourist attractions, they're educational institutions, research centers, and cultural treasures that belong to all Americans. Children's school field trips canceled, scientific research interrupted, all because Trump and his Project 2025 allies are using this crisis as cover to dismantle parts of our government they've always hated. Federal employee paychecks started being affected on day 10 of the shutdown. Imagine being a federal worker right now. You're either furloughed without pay, or you're deemed essential and forced to work without knowing when you'll be paid. You still have rent to pay, groceries to buy, kids to feed. But your government has decided you're expendable in this political game. Now here's the part that should make every American's blood boil. On October 9th, President Trump said his administration plans to use the government shutdown to permanently cut government programs that are, in his words, very popular Democrat programs that aren't popular with Republicans. Let's break down what he just admitted. He's saying the quiet part out loud. This shutdown isn't about fiscal responsibility or reducing the deficit. It's about eliminating programs that help Americans because those programs happen to be supported by Democrats. He's not even hiding it anymore. He's admitting that he's weaponizing a government shutdown, using millions of Americans as hostages to score political points and gut programs his party doesn't like. And here's the kicker. Trump's own White House used taxpayer dollars to send out messages blaming Democrats for the shutdown. The messages claimed Trump opposes a government shutdown and strongly supports the clean continuing resolution, while, unfortunately, Democrats are blocking it. This is gaslighting on a national scale. The president creates a crisis, admits he's using that crisis to eliminate programs Americans need, then uses our own tax money to tell us it's actually the Democrats' fault. It's Orwellian. So where does Congress stand? As of today, October 14th, we're entering week 3 with no end in sight. The Senate isn't even scheduled to hold votes until tomorrow, Tuesday. When they did vote last week, both partisan funding bills failed. Republicans and Democrats are not just disagreed, they're entrenched. The House isn't scheduled to return until day 14 of the shutdown. Let me repeat that. The People's House, the chamber that's supposed to be closest to the American people, isn't even bothering to show up for work, while the government they're supposed to fund remains closed. Some Republicans are starting to get cold feet about Trump's shutdown strategy and layoff threats. They're seeing the polling. They're hearing from constituents. They understand that federal employees aren't abstract bureaucrats. They're their neighbors, their friends, their constituents. And they're seeing that the American people aren't buying the Democrats are blocking us narrative. But here's the problem. Even Republicans who privately disagree with this strategy are too afraid of Trump to stand up to him. They know that one critical tweet, one Truth Social post, and their political careers could be over. So they stay silent while the country suffers. This shutdown is revealing something much larger and more disturbing than a typical budget fight. It's exposing a deliberate strategy to weaken and ultimately dismantle the federal government's ability to serve the American people. Think about what Project 2025 called for: drastically reducing the civil service, giving the president more power to fire federal employees, eliminating or dramatically shrinking numerous federal agencies, and politicizing positions that have traditionally been nonpartisan. Now look at what's happening during this shutdown. Mass layoffs of federal workers, the gutting of agencies like the CDC, the closure of institutions like the Smithsonian, and the elimination of programs that serve vulnerable Americans. This is not coincidence. This is the plan. And Trump is being remarkably transparent about it. He's putting Russ Vought, of Project 2025 fame, as Trump himself called him, in charge of identifying what to cut. He's admitting he wants to eliminate Democrat programs. He's celebrating the chaos. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has been vocal about the crisis, though Democrats seem somewhat flat-footed in their response. They passed a clean CR in the House. They've tried to negotiate, but they're dealing with an administration that doesn't want to negotiate. It wants to burn things down. Liberal commentators and think tanks like the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities have pointed out that Trump has no legal authority to use a shutdown to conduct widespread firings. Sam Berger, who worked at OMB during both the Biden and Obama administrations, stated clearly, "A shutdown provides no new legal authority to engage in widespread firings." But here's the thing. When has Trump ever cared about what he's legally allowed to do? His entire political career has been built on testing the boundaries of executive power and daring someone to stop him. What we're witnessing is potentially a constitutional crisis in slow motion. The president is using a government funding crisis as a pretext to unilaterally reshape the federal workforce. He's eliminating positions, gutting agencies, and making policy changes that should require congressional approval, all while Congress is deadlocked and unable to function. The separation of powers is supposed to prevent this. Congress controls the purse strings. The president executes the laws. But when Congress won't or can't act, and when the president has an OMB director who wants federal workers to feel traumatized, we're in uncharted territory. Federal employee unions have vowed to challenge the firings in court. But litigation takes time. Meanwhile, people are losing their jobs, services are being disrupted, and the federal government's capacity to serve the American people is being permanently degraded. If you're watching this and thinking, "I don't work for the government, so this doesn't affect me," think again. The CDC employees being fired? They track disease outbreaks that could affect your community. The mental health workers being laid off? They help people in crisis, which reduces crime and improves public safety. The substance abuse program staff? They're on the front lines of the opioid epidemic that's devastating communities across America. When the Smithsonian closes, we lose access to our collective cultural heritage. When research stops, we fall behind other nations in innovation. When air traffic controllers don't get paid, flight safety is compromised. When food inspectors are furloughed, the safety of our food supply is at risk. This is the insidious thing about attacking the federal government. The consequences aren't always immediate or obvious, but they're real and they affect everyone. The American people are watching and they're not happy. Trump's job approval has hit new second-term lows among 3 different demographic groups, according to recent Economist YouGov polling. More Americans blame Trump and Republicans for the shutdown than blame Democrats. A plurality of Americans think neither side's position is worth a shutdown. The public understands what's happening here. They see through the blame game. They recognize that when you control the White House and you're the one threatening to eliminate popular programs, you own the consequences. But here's what worries me. Polling doesn't matter if it doesn't translate into action. Republicans in Congress need to feel enough pressure from their constituents to break with Trump and end this shutdown. And so far, that pressure hasn't been sufficient. The solution to this crisis is straightforward. Congress needs to pass a clean funding bill, the president needs to sign it, and the government needs to reopen. Then, if Republicans want to debate which programs should exist and how they should be funded, they can have that debate through the normal legislative process. That's how our system is supposed to work. You don't hold the government hostage. You don't use a funding crisis to make unilateral policy changes. You don't traumatize federal workers to score political points. But none of that will happen as long as Republicans in Congress are too afraid of Trump to do the right thing. And that's the tragedy of this moment. There are enough votes in both chambers to end this shutdown tomorrow if Republicans would simply vote their conscience instead of their fear. So here we are, entering week 3 of a completely unnecessary government shutdown. Museums closed, paychecks stopped, essential services disrupted. All so that Trump and his Project 2025 allies can pursue their dream of a dramatically smaller, weaker federal government that serves corporate interests instead of the American people. This isn't about fiscal responsibility. It's not about reducing waste or improving efficiency. This is ideological warfare being waged against the very concept of a government that serves the public good. And the cruelest irony? Trump is using taxpayer dollars to lie about what he's doing while simultaneously bragging about it on social media. He thinks we're all stupid enough to believe the Democrats are blocking him while he openly admits he's eliminating programs for political reasons. The question now is, how long will this last? How much damage will be done to our government's ability to function? How many people will lose their jobs, their homes, their livelihoods? How many services will be permanently disrupted? And perhaps most importantly, will the American people hold accountable the politicians who caused this crisis? Because make no mistake, this is on Trump and the Republicans who enable him. They created this crisis. They're perpetuating it, and they could end it tomorrow if they wanted to. The government shutdown of 2025 will be remembered as a turning point. Either it's the moment when checks and balances reasserted themselves and Congress remembered its constitutional duty, or it's the moment when we learned that Project 2025 was never a hypothetical. It was always the plan, just waiting for the right crisis to be implemented. We're living through a deliberate attempt to reshape American government in ways that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. And it's happening in plain sight, with Trump and his allies not even bothering to hide what they're doing anymore. The only question left is, what are we going to do about it? That's it for today's video. If this made you angry, good. You should be angry. If this scared you, good. You should be scared. But don't just be angry or scared. Call your representatives. Tell them to end this shutdown. Tell them federal workers deserve to be paid. Tell them you won't accept the weaponization of government funding for political purposes. And subscribe to this channel, because we're going to keep covering this story until it's resolved. The mainstream media might move on to the next crisis, but we won't. This matters too much. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
If you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any